All right, guys. Today we're going to be discussing something called the spectacle. And the spectacle in this can just be interchanged with the term social media. Um, and how the spectacle drives our relationships between men and women to exacerbate the environmental crisis. So let's jump into it. So, as I said, today we're going to be discussing the spectacle. And in 1967, this French theorist, a Marxist theorist named Guy Debord. He published something called the Society of the Spectacle. So Debord was obviously far ahead of his time. He wrote this in 1967, decades before the invention of social media. Um, the famous line from Debord is, "The spectacle is not a collection of images, but a social relation among people mediated by images." This quote encapsulates the current distinction between reality and the social media nightmare that we've become entrapped in. So people no longer connect based on, who they actually are, but the images that they project on their social media page. And these images are portrayed by the social media spectacle. These images promote self-indulgence over modesty, abundance over minimalism, luxury over sustainable living, clout over a humble life. Modern life has become dominated by these curated appearances of the spectacle and the validation that comes with posting those images. You get your likes and your little hit of dopamine by saying, "Oh, I traveled here," or "I did this," or "I went there. Look at me, I'm so cool." But the problem is that it's not real. Social media is fake. Everything on your phone is fake. It's not real life. People live on their phones now. It's turned us into spectators of our own lives, prioritizing appearances over purpose. So the spectacle is not just images, but it's the entire social relationship between us is mediated by these images that aren't real. Reality has become secondary. And now what matters more is how things look and not how things actually are. So someone performing a life of hyperabundance for Instagram clout signals more value than somebody living quietly and sustainably. You know, everybody wants to be friends with the guy that's traveling here, there, and everywhere, generating more carbon emissions in one trip than 1,000 people in India do in their entire lifetime. So the substance of an actual human being has been replaced by this shallow sensationalism and escapism that keeps Western cultural consumerism running at the expense of poor people around the world and the environment. Debord said, "The spectacle is the existing order's uninterrupted discourse about itself. It's a laundered monologue, it's a laudatory monologue. It's the self-portrait of power in the epic of its totalitarian management of existence." It's a little bit to digest there, but I'll break it down for you. So this means that showing off abundance or chasing social media validation is the system flattering itself. It's this obsession with self-image, displaying self-indulgence as a self-portrait of our own imprisonment in a system designed to destroy the long-term future at the expense of short-term satisfaction. Debord said, "The spectacle is the nightmare of imprisoned modern society, which ultimately expresses nothing more than its desire to sleep. The spectacle is the guardian of sleep." What this means is that the spectacle has people sleepwalking, where they're not really awake, but they're also not really asleep. They're in this in-between space where they're functioning, but like who's in the driver's seat? Well, the elites are in the driver's seat and you're just fucking a pawn living your life, uh, thinking that you're cool, but in reality, you're just in this remaining in this nightmare of this rat race, chasing shallow ambitions and a failing economy to signal your short-term value while the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and you are leading everyone to their own demise. It's fucked up, but it's true, and it's a big pill to swallow. I don't mean to be all doom and gloom, but like, I'm tired of this shit. So like the Earth just doesn't have the carrying capacity for infinite consumerism. By 2050, scientists and demographers predict that as many as 10 billion human beings will be walking the Earth, and the spectacle will have every single one of them in competition to display a prosperous life. The question is, like, how can we provide for all of those people without wrecking the natural systems on which we all depend? Well, the problem is, like, the ship's too large to turn quickly. We're sailing in one direction and it's not in a good one. And, you know, especially if the majority of the people rowing the oars are validated while those that are trying to turn the rudders are being ignored. So, as of today, human beings have already increased the temperature of the planet by over 1 degree Celsius. Fact, undeniable. If you don't believe in climate change at this point, you're not a serious person. Um, if we exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius, like, we'll have catastrophic effects on the planet, guaranteed. So this 1 degree Celsius, like, should be thought of in terms of the planet having a fever. The human body temp's usually like 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and a 1 degree Celsius temperature increase puts you, at about 101 degrees fever. So at 101 degrees, you got a fever, you're sick, you probably ain't getting out of bed, you're not functioning. You go up to 104, that's about another degree and a half Celsius. You're probably going to die. So, like, the increase of global temperature is a result of actions that have been taken or are still in effect. And the consequences are still ongoing, meaning that even if we were to like completely turn everything around today, we're still committed to a global temperature increase of 1.7 degrees Celsius. Like, we're already going to exceed the safe thresholds for planetary temperature increase. And like, this is regardless because we got all these waste emissions from goods and services currently being used or have been produced that exceed the environment's capacity to safely assimilate them back into the environment. This is thermodynamics. This is, energy transfer. We create something and it eventually returns to nature, but we've created so much stuff that it can't go back into nature safely. In fact, in 2021, the amount of biological material on the planet, so all of the plants, trees, living things, the human-built environment, if you put those two on a scale, the human-built environment versus the natural environment, biological material mass, there's more human-built stuff than every living thing on Earth. Like, we have made that much shit. So we're committed to exceeding, safe temperature thresholds for the planet, no matter what we do. So, uh, we have all these fossil fuels that are still on reserve, and this death cult of capitalism is hell-bent on burning all of it. But if we do that, like, the temperature of the planet will increase by 13 degrees. There's no coming back from that. That's 5 times more oil and coal on the books than scientists think it's safe to burn. This means we would have to leave 80% of those reserves, which are worth $27 trillion in the ground, which is a tough thing for capitalists to do, just leave all that money sitting there, but we have to do it. This dilemma is increasingly harder to address as a result of climate denial, lobbyists, greedy politicians, billionaires, corporations, whoever people want to blame except for themselves because nobody seems to be able to take accountability anymore. But Even in the face of Arctic ice decline by 30%, the oceans being 30% more acidic, increased atmospheric temperature that increases atmospheric water holding capacity, causing all these hurricanes and floods at a rate never seen before, biodiversity loss, extinction, plastic pollution, soil degradation. Like everybody wants to blame, talk about carbon emissions and how that's increasing the temperature. No, it's like there's a bunch of different things that are totally measurable that we have exceeded in terms of planetary boundaries. Fact. So, in the face of overwhelming evidence of extinction, the spectacle or social media, triumphs the illusion of safety and prosperity because it's more comfortable than reality. However, as more and more people scramble to travel the world and toil away at meaningless jobs for mediocre pay for a sense of false security, uh, trying to retire on a dead planet, global supply chains are extracting resources at a rate that can't be substituted. What the spectacle considers abundance, prosperity, and security uh, in the future, like they're already relics of the past. These tech bros and finance bros paying a 7% mortgage on $1 million condo, 2 million after interest at a fixed rate for 30 years. Like they're already homeless. They just don't know it yet. Like you might be great at running an Excel spreadsheet, but can you build something with your hands? Like, are you a man? Can you fix the plumbing? Can you wire your own electrical? Can you grow your own food? No, men like that are a dying breed. The spectacle rewards self-indulgent men with soft hands today, and they get validation from women for being that. But women are caught in the spectacle and they don't realize that they're praising and approving the very behavior that will not protect them or provide for them in physical reality. In fact, these are the very men participating in the death cult of short-term quality capital returns that extracts resources from the earth to the point that there will be nothing left for the children women create. The spectacle has women investing in the wrong types of qualities in men because these qualities disregard the future at the expense of future generations. Women see this growth as success, but growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell. Not only do these men have soft hands, but they have soft morals and weak leadership ethics that discount the future of the children women create. This is a vicious feedback loop where men believe they need to destroy the planet for female attention. And the more the planet is driven to ruin, the more women celebrate growth to feel like they have a secure future. It's this terrible feedback loop we're stuck in, but there is an alternative where quality can be celebrated over quantity. The spectacle celebrates growth over development. What this means is like when something grows, it gets bigger. But when something develops, it gets better. Uh, like this contrast can be seen in relationship dynamics. For example, cooking at home, going for a walk, talking, simply enjoying each other's company. This doesn't cost money, develops real assets of the relationship between men and women. But women seem to be more attracted to financial status, posting exotic vacations on their Instagram, designer clothes, mortgage traps, and depreciating assets like expensive cars. And these are all considered nice things and get plenty of likes and validation, but they are debt accumulating liabilities that will lead you to a life in debt. Do you see how the spectacle celebrates quantity over quality? Do you see how this behavior imprisons all of us in debt while the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? This is the epitome of hegemony. The spectacle has reduced men into characters on Keeping Up with the Kardashians so they can get female validation. The spectacle has convinced women that these weak men with no masculine traits or skills who are drowning in debt to satisfy their own lust and greed can provide for them in the future, which they can't. I don't blame women for this. Like, women are biologically wired for survival, and this is what feels like survival to them. But if you look at this from a human evolutionary standpoint, humans have been around for roughly 200,000 years. In that time, like not much has changed. Up until the past few hundred years, things changed dramatically. And in the past couple of decades, things changed like crazy. Like stuff that we can do now would seem like magic to our grandparents or great grandparents. Um, so essentially, we are old hardware, our bodies, like running on new software. And we have the biological hardware wiring of hunter-gatherers, but we're running on the software of the modern information and technological age. Survival for women today is not what it was 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, women selected the strongest man who could hunt and provide food, protect her while she was pregnant, build a shelter, etc. From a Darwinian standpoint, men that couldn't do these things in the past were weeded out. Today, men have adapted away from these traits and women are selecting mates who can't do these things. So what does that mean for the future? Well, men are selected based only on their ability to participate in the destruction of the planet right now, not their symbiotic ability to coexist with nature anymore. But the environmental crisis and recent climate change data suggests that the inherent skills that make a man a real man are going to be more necessary than ever in the near future. Women need to realize that the spectacle is a paradigm based on fake images, and these men that you're seeing on social media like are not actual men. They're self-indulgent little bitches. And from these images comes this shared social agreement about the nature of reality. The problem is that the spectacle only reflects reality in the most basic and contrived way. We're only seeing it through the lens of the now and not what is to come. And most men lack the vision of what is to come. Um, so somehow the spectacle is painting these cancers of men who are a cancer to the earth uh, in a positive light. If women want to continue sleepwalking through the spectacle and cling to a false paradigm that steers you to your own biological extinction, then you do you. But there are like plenty of guys out here that are gonna keep loudly and assertively pointing at the anomalies and failures of the old system in places of public visibility and power until one day you hopefully realize and wake up and see that, these modern tech and finance bros can't protect you. There's a vast middle ground of active change makers and men who can operate in both worlds that are unattached to the spectacle, that are out here building a debt-free life and aren't out here fucking up the planet while they do it. And that spectacle is where men have the power, in that space, excuse me, is where men have the power to throw off addiction, live in constant joy, bring down empires, found religions, maybe even get locked up or disappeared or shot. But all of these things have impacts on society that protect women and children for future generations, which is what a real man is supposed to do. So in closing, Debord was right. The spectacle is an illusion designed to keep us asleep, but the cracks are showing. The system is failing. The question is, will you keep sleepwalking or will you wake up?